I've always been interested in nature and the environment. Like any Brit, I grew up watching nature programmes on TV. However, I lived in London where I didn't have much access to nature, but there was a local meadowland where I used to go running. I remember going on a trip when I was younger to Northern Ireland. We visited an ancient wood, and it was there that for the first time I felt a deep connection to nature. So when my friend invited me on a march for nature, it seemed like the right thing to do. At the climate march, maybe I was a little naive, but I didn't realise the extent of climate change. I felt overwhelmed by the information on the signs and banners. The people there were not like me, and it was a shaming experience where a lot was expected of me, and I left it feeling isolated and that I didn't belong. I felt lost. I wanted to do something, but I didn't know how I could get involved. How do I break into this space? If this is who climate activists are, if this is what I'm meant to be like, then I don't fit in. Often, when we are presented with a threat, it triggers one of three responses: fight, flight, or freeze. Many people feel so overwhelmed by the threat of climate change, they freeze up and become apathetic or immobilized. Many want to run away from the problem, to ignore it, to dismiss it, to tell themselves it's not real or won't be that bad, or that some invention will save us. But I have always been someone who, if they see an injustice or something wrong in the world, I am motivated to fix it. But what am I meant to do as an individual? How do I get involved? I felt like an outsider. Okay, so I'll change what I can. Food, clothing, travel. But others were not doing the same, and this felt stressful and frustrating. And my climate anxiety was still there. My thoughts were telling me I could always do more. 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 The overwhelming feeling, the racing thoughts, the tight chest, the constant questioning and blaming myself on if I was doing enough, it was making me depressed. The climate crisis is a huge topic. It is affected by and affects so many different aspects of the world, from environmental to social to economic to political. It's clear that seemingly small changes can have a huge impact on someone somewhere in the world. For every tree felled, for every half a degree of temperature rise, there will be worse hurricanes, wildfires or floods, which may devastate someone's home. Because climate change is such a broad issue, I worry I'm not using my skills in the right area. At its very worst, this causes me to feel overwhelmed and like I want to disappear. I knew from past experience that exercise is a great way to combat these feelings. Exercise releases chemicals and hormones into the brain that affect how you feel, which can help us to feel less stressed and more clear-headed. Another thing I found helpful was to switch off, to stop thinking about it, to take a break and to escape, either through a good book or film or by going for a walk, especially in nature. Nature has been proven to have an incredibly calming effect. When I go for a walk in nature, whether that's in a park or a local wood, I don't listen to music. I try to notice the world around me. The birds, the sounds, the plants, the trees, and to try to stay present with it and realise that I'm a part of nature. But my climate anxiety was still there. Talking about concerns and worries was also very important, but it took me a while to realise the best way to do this. I would talk to my friends about the climate crisis, but we would easily fall into a spiral of, oh, isn't this bad? Or did you hear about this negative climate news story? And sometimes talking about it can feel like action, but it isn't. It is important to share those feelings and to get them off your chest. But now what I've found is that if we talk about it in terms of ideas or solutions, by sharing groups or campaigns which are tackling these issues, then together we can turn those feelings into action. But my climate anxiety was still there. This was because I didn't realise that climate anxiety is also a result of a failure of the systems of power from government to big business, that impact us all. At the same time, I'd become aware of racial justice issues around the world and thought, what can I do? How can I help people of different races being treated unfairly throughout the world? I set up a group of creatives called Black on Black, and I wrote articles, I designed leaflets, and I organised events. The more I learnt, the more I realised that racial justice and climate justice are linked. People in other countries who had contributed the least to cause climate change were suffering the worst effects of it. I found this deeply unfair. I had found a way into the climate movement, where my voice and my identity not only belonged, but are useful. The skills I had developed through racial justice campaigning are the same ones needed in the campaign for climate justice. We put so much emphasis on looking to one person, one hero to save us, whether that's Greta Thunberg or whoever. But some people believe that if they're not doing as much, that they have no right to be involved. But no one action will change the world, and no one person is so important that without or with them, they would bring an end to climate change. It will take all of us, each of us, doing what we can together. They say that action is the antidote to anxiety, and it's not just a phrase. So I set up an Instagram account called Climate in Colour. I never expected it to grow in the way it has, which made me realise I was not alone. I used to worry that I didn't have a purpose or have the ability to make a difference. So I did something about it. I decided to do a PhD to become a doctor in conservation technology, looking at how tech can monitor changes in forests and improve the variety of animals within them, with the hope that if I can work with local communities to help protect wildlife, I'll be making a difference. And I know that my climate anxiety is not cured. It will not go away permanently. But I now know that it's a perfectly normal response to climate change. Not only is it normal, but I'm proud of it, because it shows I care. I now use my climate anxiety as a tool. I do not let it depress me or overwhelm me, but to empower me and motivate me. It motivates me on my journey, a journey that has taken me to some amazing places and to meet some inspirational people. I've been privileged enough to speak on panels and to decision makers and world leaders about the climate and biodiversity crisis. But I now know that no single individual can do it all. And it's important not to think that as an individual, all of the responsibility lands on my shoulders. Because no one can be a perfect activist, and it's important to be tolerant and to recognise and respect others. Everyone is on their own journey and their own path, and what works for you might not work for others. So I try to live my life and lead by example. When I started my journey on that march all those years ago, I felt like I didn't belong, and I felt ashamed and made to feel guilty that I wasn't doing enough. But now those marches are much more diverse, and there are so many different groups representing so many different aspects of the climate crisis. But you don't just have to attend climate protests to be actively doing something for the climate. You can help researchers by surveying the bird or insect species in your garden. You can find out about tree planting organisations and volunteer days near you. Whatever your passions and interests, there'll be a space for you in the climate movement. So just think what you could do. But remember that you're not on your own. We won't solve the climate crisis with individual action alone. You can be part of a wider movement of people pushing for the change we need. And be proud of your climate anxiety. And let it lead you to action.